All right, welcome to the 2015 Water Heater Efficiency Standards webinar. My name is Chad Sanborn, and I'm the Product Marketing Manager for Bradford White. This discussion will cover a few items. We're going to cover what the definition of the rule is as DOE defines it. DOE is the Department of Energy. I'll refer to them as the DOE throughout this presentation. We'll cover the products that will be affected by this change. We'll also cover how these changes will affect you, and of course we'll also cover how Bradford White will help you. A couple items that this webinar will not cover. We're not going to cover any new product introductions. I'm not here to sell, I'm just here to inform. And also I won't engage in any pricing of the new products. So basically, the DOE final rule, or Department of Energy final rule, is a final rule that affects manufacturers effective April 16th, 2015. This is a hard date for manufacturers, so we as a manufacturer can no longer manufacture product that does not comply with the increased energy standards after this date. All the customers, our wholesalers, our contractors can still buy and sell and install product that is non-compliant, but it's only up to the manufacturer to make sure that we are manufacturing compliant product after this date. So basically what this webinar is going to cover is it's mandating higher energy factors for virtually all residential water heaters, gas, electric, oil, and tankless. Keep in mind the DOE only sets the new standards. They don't set how water heaters are designed or manufactured to meet these new standards. That's up to us as an industry. This is what I'm talking about today. So when we talk about gas-fired water heaters, the products in question are products 20 gallons to 100 gallons below 75,000 BTU per hour. Notice there's a couple different lines inside that box. And over on the far right-hand side, if you can see that, there's a formula, and V stands for the for the capacity of the water heater. So if you had a 40-gallon water heater, you would put that into the formula, and that's the minimum energy factor that the water heater will have to test to after April 16th, 2015. Oil-fired products, our residential water heaters are 50 gallons and below equal to or below 105,000 BTU per hour. Electric water heaters, products in question that we'll be talking about today are products equal to and above 20 gallons, all the way up to 120 gallons, and all 12 kW of input and under. And notice again there's a split in capacity, and there's two different formulas. We'll get into that a little bit deeper. Instantaneous, otherwise known as tankless water heaters, gas-fired water heaters, products in question are less than 2 gallons and equal to or less than 200,000 BTU per hour. And then, of course, tankless or instantaneous electric water heaters. There's no change to this formula, but it's included in the rule anyway. So the formula is the same. So a closer look at some of the gas water heaters. This is a chart that we've put together to kind of show what the current standard is today and what the standard will be after April 16th, 2015. Notice the second row down, my mouse will work here. Right here are those same two formulas that we saw on the other screen. So products below 55 gallons fall into this formula. Products above 55 gallons fall into this formula. Let's take an example. A 40-gallon residential water heater today has a minimum energy factor of a 0.59. After 2015, it will be required by manufacturers to manufacture the product to meet a minimum 0.62 energy factor. On the tankless, today the current minimum energy factor is a 0.62, and after 2015, the new minimum standard will be a 0.82. This really doesn't affect the tankless market a whole lot. Basically what this does is it eliminates the standing pilot on tankless type water heaters. The big change is above 55 gallons in gas. So notice the formula is different. It's a higher EF. So if you take an example of a 65-gallon water heater, put that into the formula. Today we must meet a 0.55 energy factor for the minimum. After 2015, we'll have to meet a 0.75. So what does that mean? Products below 55 gallons, this is kind of just a snapshot of what you can expect to see. Your products will grow 2 inches in diameter approximately, and approximately 1 to 2 inches taller. So essentially a 50-gallon gas today, if space is a constraint, if it's installed into an alcove with 0-inch clearance, and you won't be able to fit that exact same 50-gallon model back in there, it might have to be a 40-gallon. 40-gallon might have to turn into a 30-gallon, etc. If space is not a concern, then you could put in that potentially larger or taller water heater. Above 55 gallons, the products will have to be condensing type technology. What this means is larger, heavier units than non-condensing models, essentially more flue tubes or bigger flues, and different type of venting materials. You can't vent a condensing type product through standard category 1 venting. Additional insulation will mostly be likely similar to that last slide. These products will have blowers, electronic controls, etc. And there will be a need for condensate disposal. And of course, we'll have to have 120 volt electricity to plug these heaters into. And there may be some new code requirements instituted as a result of this. As I said before, this April 16th, 2015 is a manufacturer date deadline. There is nothing that states the products cannot be sold and distributed and installed after that with a certain stop date. But some local code requirements may require a specific date that no longer could older product be installed. But as it stands today, that doesn't exist. A closer look at the electric sizes, or electric water heaters. We did the same thing here. We took those two formulas that we saw from the first screen and divided them out and plugged in a few common capacities. Let's take an example, the 40-gallon electric again. Today, the 40-gallon electric would have to meet a minimum of 0.92 EF, or energy factor. After 2015, actually all of them, 20, 30, 40, and 50, will all have to meet a 0.95 energy factor. The big change comes above 55 gallon. Notice an 80-gallon electric today with a 0.86 energy factor. After 2015, it'll have to be a 1.97. So what does that mean? That's essentially over 100% efficient. This basically means that the water heater is going to be stealing its energy from another energy source. Products below 55 gallons, what you can expect is kind of the same as you would expect for the gas products below 55 gallons. These sizes will grow roughly 2 inches in diameter and roughly 1 or 2 inches taller. So the same would be true. If space is a constraint right now, typically the product that's going to be installed after 2015 will be lesser capacity. If space isn't a constraint, then you could get away with adding a larger jacketed heater. Same capacity, but more insulation. Above 55 gallons, this is a big change. This is going to require heat pump technology as we know it today. Thing to keep in mind, most heat pumps today require about 700 to 1,000 cubic feet of space for room air. The ambient room temperature is affected, and it does affect performance. So essentially, if the room air is too cool, it's going to take longer to pull that heat and put in to put the heat into the tank. If the room air is much warmer, it'll have a lot of energy that it could rob and put into the tank and last the performance of the heater. There may be some regular maintenance required. These do today require filters. And of course, they have compressors and blowers that run, so the noise level is there. And also, these create condensation. So these also may have new code requirements may be instituted as a result of these. So same is true as it stands today. There is no requirement or no end date of when wholesalers and contractors can install these products, but that doesn't mean that a local code could supersede that. A closer look at some of the oil sizes. Again, we took the formula, put in a couple common capacities today as we know it. So for example, a 32-gallon oil-fired water heater Today's current minimum EF is a 0.53. After 2015, it'll have to be a 0.62. Closer look, again, this means more insulation, so roughly a few inches bigger in diameter and a few inches taller is likely. Also with oil fire products, it's most likely you'll see additional heat transfer techniques. So more ways to pull the heat or extract the heat from the flue and put into the water. So to recap, how will products change when 2015 arrives? Well, it's going to depend on class and volume. So it'll be minor in some cases, more radical in others. Minor with products below 55 gallons, more radical with products above 55 gallons. Gas water heaters above 55 gallons but less than 75,000 BTU per hour most likely will have to be fully condensing based on today's technology. And the same is true for electric water heaters. Above 55 gallons, below 12 kW of input, will likely use a heat pump configuration on top of the water heater to meet the new standards. So let's take a closer look what this means to the industry. We found probably the best way to convey this message to everybody is to really just ask questions. We want to get everybody thinking, get everybody on board so that they can make the decisions, the best decisions for their company to prepare for this change. So regarding storage, do you have the proper space to store potentially taller, wider, and heavier products? Regarding transportation, will your current vehicles allow for proper moving and handling of taller, wider, and heavier products? Will you need more than one person to move the product around? Regarding installation, products that used to be a one-person job to install, is it now a two-person job? Is it an in and out replacement? Is it no longer a swapping of a 50-gallon electric with a 50-gallon electric or an 80-gallon with an 80-gallon? Now you might have to install a heat pump instead. And of course, does existing space accommodate larger size product? And then is there different venting and condensate needs from the old style product to the new? Regarding ongoing maintenance, will additional site visits be required? So essentially the heat pump products may need filters that have to be changed. Is the end user going to be changing these filters where they haven't had to in the past with an electric water heater? And of course, regarding costs, what challenges will customers have in paying for higher cost equipment? And how will this higher cost equipment affect the wholesaler and contractor budgeting and cash flow? So another change that has been going on parallel with the 2015 increased energy factors is a uniform test method. So I just want to talk real brief about the way that products are tested to meet an EF. So as it stands today, the current energy factor test method is a 24-hour simulated use test. Essentially, a water heater sits in test for 24 hours. There is 10 gallons of water drawn at the top of every hour for the first 6 hours. And then at the end of the 24-hour period, calculations such as recovery efficiency, standby loss, all the gas or electricity used, water used, all of that gets thrown into a spreadsheet and run through a formula and outputs a energy factor, or what we know as an EF. So typically these EF numbers are certified by a third party. The most common in the industry is the Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration Institute that will do this. A parallel change that is happening is the DOE is proposing to change this test method. So essentially what this means is we have the finish line defined. So if you think of in relation to cars and we're racing to the finish line is defined. However, the test method is not. So the way we get to the finish line is not defined. We're not told if we're going to be racing on a dirt track or pavement, or if it's straight, uphill, curvy. We don't know. So it's a little gray right now. But what they're proposing, I say they, the DOE, they're proposing to change or redefine the definition between residential and commercial products. So as it stands today, residential products and gas are below 75,000 BTU per hour, 20 gallon to 100 gallon. and electric residential product are 20 gallon to 120 gallon below 12 kW. What the DOE is proposing to do is to make 3 criteria that would separate residential versus commercial. So if the product is ASME rated, if it has a 180-degree set point, or if it has 3-phase wiring, it's considered a commercial water heater. All other products would be considered residential, regardless of capacity or input. They've also proposed bins for testing. So as it stands today, first hour delivery does not affect the energy factor or the efficiency. But what they've proposed is they proposed first hour delivery to determine which bin the water heater is placed in. So as you can see in the screen there, it shows 4 different bins that they've proposed based on first hour rating or first hour delivery. As the product is tested to a first hour rating, that will place the water heater into a certain bin, and then each bin has a different draw pattern for the simulated use test. So the simulated use test today is, as I said, 6 draws of 10 gallons and then 18 hours of standby. Each one of these bins has a completely different draw pattern. So it may draw a half a gallon in the first hour, and then a gallon the next hour, then maybe a half a gallon the hour after that, and it will draw water throughout the entire day, or the entire 24-hour test. So some of the big questions: are you ready for 2015? What have you done to prepare for 2015? And I can say Bradford White is ready and prepared and committed to sharing information. So we've started sharing information with our customers and business partners since 2011. I conducted a presentation similar to this at the National PHCC convention last year. And of course, we've developed a frequently asked question brochure that can be found on our website, or floating throughout the industry. We've expanded our manufacturing facility in Middleville, Michigan to create new equipment and be able to build these new products and expand the offering after 2015. And we've realigned our engineering and research and development resources to focus on these new, more complex products. And we've also opened up our iTech facility in Middleville, Michigan as well to help educate customers and business partners on current products as well as the new technology products that we'll start to see in the industry. So that's all I have. I'd like to open it up to some questions. This is kind of more of a Q&A presentation that I'd like to answer some of the questions that have popped up. All right, I see one of the questions says, do we know how long we can sell our inventory that we have in stock? So as I said before, this April 16th, 2015 deadline is a hard date for manufacturers. So wholesalers and contractors can still sell existing inventory after that date. There is no end date as we know it today. Another question, will your electric water heaters and heat pump models be ENERGY STAR rated? As it stands today, most heat pump water heaters are ENERGY STAR related, or are ENERGY STAR qualified. This is strictly on the EF, as well as some other parameters such as the warranty period. I believe as it stands today, a heat pump needs to be a 2.0 minimum to be ENERGY STAR. Can I put 2 40-gallon heaters in instead of 175 to save on cost in a new installation? That's a very good question. The answer to that is yes. So if somebody has a 75 or an 80-gallon water heater that would require new the newer technology, they can twin heaters together or even triple heaters together if they need to, if space permits. When will the heat pump and condensing gas products become available? That's a pretty good question. A lot of times, a lot of the products are available now in the market. Different type products are currently available. This is a tough question. I'll read this one off. It says, how are you going to address the retrofit market where size space is an issue? Really, what we've done, and I'm sure all the other manufacturers are doing the same thing, is we've taken this size space issue into consideration when designing and developing new products. So that's probably one of the most key criteria for our customers, and we recognize that, and we want to make sure that we have products available to fit into those applications. Unfortunately, some applications it might not work. For example, if it's, as I said before, if you have a 50-gallon that's installed in 0-inch clearance, you're most likely not going to be able to fit a 50-gallon back in there. You'll have to put a lesser capacity heater in. Question is, just to confirm, there will be no natural draft gas water heaters above 55 gallons. As it stands today, that is true. Anything above 55 gallon will have to be a condensing type water heater to meet that new minimum energy factor. Someone asked about pricing. We'll skip that. Another question, so a current 50-gallon power vent meets the new EF. In most cases, yes. So there are products out there today that meet that new minimum EF. The way to determine that would be to put the capacity into the formula and develop the minimum energy factor. And then, of course, all manufacturers today list the EFs of all of their products. Another question. Please explain again why the units below 55 gallon will need to be expanded with insulation. So as the energy factor increases, the way to achieve a higher energy factor is to keep the heat inside the tank or in the water and not letting the heat escape through the jacket of the water heater. If we need to increase the energy factor, the way to achieve that is to increase the insulation. So you're adding insulation to the water heater. I got to skip that question. What will the warranty be on the new heaters? That's probably a question that I should avoid, but most likely it'll be standard warranties as you see today. Here's a good question. Will a 75-gallon tank with a 76,000 BTU per hour be affected by the new DOE rule? As it stands today, the answer to that question is no. Because it's above 75,000 BTU per hour, that product will not be affected. However, that's why I talked about what the DOE is proposing to redefine between residential and commercial. Once we get this final rule on that, which we expect to see any day, those products could and most likely will be brought into this criteria. Good question. Will vent size need to change if I put in two 40-gallon tanks? Of course, we want to make sure that products are installed according with National Fuel and Gas Code, but most likely the vent size will need to change based on the amount of BTUs that you're putting through. So you could run your standard 3-inch, twin it together to a larger diameter vent. Will adding a mixing valve affect an EF? Most likely not. Adding a mixing valve affects the performance of the heater regarding first hour or hot water deliverable. Good question. Will the DOE sometime in the future require the same stringent energy factor ratings below 55 gallon as above 55 gallon? This would be an opinionated question, but the DOE essentially can do whatever they want. But I don't know if we see that happening anytime soon. Can you explain again on the electric heaters how you can have an EF over 1? Yeah, that's a good question as well. So an EF over 1 means that you have you're 100% efficient or over 100% efficient. On the electric side, you can achieve this because of the heat pump technology that's on top of the water heater. So the heat pump portion of the water heater is not creating energy. It's essentially stealing heat from another source, and in this case, it's stealing heat from the air. That heat from the air then is forced into the water of the tank. So essentially, the calculations in this simulated use tests don't take into account all of that room air. Typically where we've seen these installation of heat pump water heaters is in warmer climates outside where hot air is a premium. Will these newer products be lead-free? Absolutely, we have to make sure that our products meet the low lead requirements as well. All kinds of questions. Good questions. Is there a chance there may be new size offerings such as 35 or 38 gallon? That's a really good question. There may be a possibility of different sizes. As I said, one of our key criteria is footprint, so we want to make sure that all products fit into size. So you probably could expect to see some odd sizes from manufacturers, but since there's such a price difference, do you know if there will be additional tax rebates for builders or end users offered for the heat pump models? I probably should skip that question. Is there anything being done to educate the public about these new regulations? The industry is trying to educate all of the customers right on down to the end users. So essentially, the answer to that question is yes. We have opted to put information on our website in a homeowner section so homeowners can view and see the changes that are coming. Will an 18-inch diameter water heater still be available? As I said before, the DOE only mandates the energy factor ratings. It's up to us as a manufacturer to determine how the water heater is constructed. So they're not outlawing anything below an 18-inch diameter water heater. If a manufacturer can develop products below that diameter, then they'll be available. Are builders aware of the new change? I would hope the answer to that is yes. Like I said, we've been sharing information since 2011 to a wider range of customers. Will parts still be produced for the current style residential water heater? The answer to that is yes. A lot of the parts today will still be used on new product. Much of the change for the new product will be in insulation below 55 gallon. So it's going to use similar drain valves, similar TMP valves, similar gas valves. Let's see. If you put a lesser gallon capacity water heater in because of space, will a mixing valve help to get back out what you took out? That's a good question. Mixing valve essentially will increase the output of hot water, but it doesn't change the energy factor. Here, if you add a storage tank to a tankless, which formula would you use to calculate EF? So the tankless is tested by itself without the storage tank, unless it is one complete product. So if you buy the tankless product by itself, that tankless is tested to the energy factor all by itself. And of course, storage tanks, as we know it today, don't require an energy factor. Someone said they missed the beginning of the webinar, and I've seen that a few times. So the main question is, which units are not affected by the DOE rule? Wayne, if I can go back on my presentation.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, I think my screen is still viewable. So this is the chart right here. This encompasses products that are affected by this rule. So gas-fired water heaters are 20 gallon to 100 gallon below 75,000 BTU per hour. Oil fire are below 55 gallons, or I'm sorry, below 50 gallons and below 105,000 BTU per hour. Electric product are 20 gallons to 120 gallons below 12 kW. Tankless products are below 2 gallons and below 200,000 BTU per hour. So these are the products that are affected. If the product is a different capacity outside of that realm and an input outside of that, it's not affected by this change as we know it today. They look to be like repeat questions, so I think that might be it, Wayne. If there are further questions after this presentation, I would encourage you to contact the local Bradford White representative in your area, or of course online at www.bradfordwhite.com. We have a lot of information available, as well as much of this presentation.